Okay, so now, I know a couple of weeks ago in one of my podcasts, I was talking about how what's in and what's out for 2025. And one of the things I was talking about was saying yes, learning how to say yes more often. So don't be confused with today's topic when we are talking with author and speaker and trainer Andrea Waltz, because her philosophy is about learning how to accept the no. So this isn't about saying no, this is about learning how to hear the no. All right. So I'm very excited to introduce to you, Andrea.
Hey, Leah, I am so glad to be here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. So you have a book, but you do a lot of speaking and training for businesses and so forth. But this work, just for anyone listening, it is for relationships. It is for your dreams and passions. It is for your business. It's for everything. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, in everything that we want to do in life, you have to be willing to face some kind of rejection. I mean, if you're interested in starting a relationship with somebody, even communicating your needs to somebody, you have to be vulnerable. And instead of forcing them to read your mind, right, you have to be willing to ask. Business, I mean, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And so, what we're talking about today, your book is called Go for No. And it's really looking forward to the no, looking forward to getting rejected. In other words, and I talk a lot about emotional healing and the wounds that we have from our past and so forth, and rejection, feeling not wanted, our unworthiness issues. These are the core of what people struggle with. So let's get into this, because this mindset shift for some people, I think, may be very challenging. But once we get to that mindset shift, it's very liberating. And I love the philosophy behind it. So tell me in a nutshell what your go for no actually means.
Well, I like the way I like that you phrased it as liberating because that's the goal. And I certainly grew up as I like to say, and this may not sound healthy, but I joke that I'm a pathological people pleaser. I mean, I always have been. And when I was a little girl, like for me, dressing up in frilly dresses and looking adorable and just having everybody like me, love me was the epitome of what it was like I guess to be a young girl. And so growing up, I learned that to have somebody say no to me or reject me wasn't in that image that I had formed. So when I discovered Go for No, I became obsessed. It became an obsession for me to apply this to my own life. We've created a little bit of a marketing challenge in this way, calling it Go for No because it sounds so negative. No one wants to hear no. Everybody wants to go for yes. It fundamentally is a sales philosophy at its absolute core, which is if you want to sell more widgets, you need to hear no more often. If you want more yeses in your life, you need to be willing to hear more no's. I think that rejection is wired into us. We're biologically wired to not want to be rejected. It's in our DNA. But also we all have like some trauma at some point, whether you're very young or maybe you're in middle school or whatever. And I stumbled upon one of my traumas and I didn't even realize what it was. When I was in high school, I think I was a freshman. I went to one of these. There was a group of girls who were creating this club. It was like a social club, and it was made up of the popular girls who wore all the cool clothes. And the mission of the club was to do good works, do like charity and hang out socially and all of that. And I thought, well, I wanted to join. So you had to sit through this interview with these girls, and I'm sure I didn't do well. It was a weird situation. I was definitely not a popular kid, and I definitely did not have the clothes to hang out with people. That's just how it was. And so when it came time for them to post, who was selected to be in the club, my name wasn't on the list. So instead of taking that positively, I did not have the tools to deal with that rejection. I said, you know what? Not only will I not join your club, I'm like done with high school. I became a rebel. I very much gravitated towards the bad kids, skipped school, just got into the wrong crowd. And I realized now that that rejection was part of what, like, that was one of my small, I hate to use the word trauma, but it was certainly a stepping stone to my journey of not wanting to be rejected, because it was very painful.
Yeah, you're correct. Many of us have, well, we've all experienced rejection. And when we're young, we don't have the skills to understand why someone wouldn't want either to give us what we want or to choose us. And this is why in my work, I talk a lot about not taking things personally, because when we take things personally, it can destroy us because our ego is always on the line there. But as children, we don't know the difference of when we're taking things personally or not. It affects us. And I would call it a little T trauma, like what you experienced. And a lot of us have experienced little T traumas over the course of our life because it was too overwhelming at the moment to know how to healthily deal with it or to process it in a positive way to maintain your sense of self and feel safe and feel wanted. So I agree it's a natural instinct to want to feel like we belong. And maybe that's what's in our DNA, maybe more so than the our fear of rejection or not wanting to be rejected. I think what's in our DNA is we want to belong. But in this age where we have so much choice over our lives, we're spoiled rotten, quite frankly. We can get almost anything we want. We can do pretty much what we want under certain stipulations. And we have this idea that the world serves us somehow. And if it's not serving us in the way that we expect or that we want in order to prove our worth, then something is wrong with us. And that's just absolutely not true. That is actually creating a kind of a narcissistic view of the world as it relates to us, and that we should get everything that we want. And I love this idea that you teach. It reminds me of some of the really wise philosophers and people in different spiritual sects and so forth that talk about one, aligning our energy, learning how to find and receive and align ourselves to what is actually for us. And also just perseverance and the tenacity and whittling out what isn't for us. Like if someone's dating, for example, most of us put on like our best front, when we're meeting someone, even if you're not dating, making a new friend, going to a new church, being in a new community, we put on our best front forward. And not that we shouldn't do that, because hopefully our best front is our authentic front in a way, but we don't speak up for ourselves. We don't say what we actually want and need or who we are because we're afraid of this rejection. And I think what you're teaching is what I very much agree with. If we if we whittle it down and get through the bulk by actually letting the no's come to us, that will so much more quickly help us reveal what is the yes, what is actually there for us, right? We waste so much time. Maybe it is part of the ego thing of like just trying to win people or things. And do we even really want them? Or is that even really what's best for us?
Yeah, that is such a good point. Well, you said so many things there
I
that
know.
I
Sorry, I
now
went on
have
a
to.
rant.
No, I loved it. And there's so many things to pick out from that. So there's kind of two parts to it. One is dealing with the rejection part. That is a big piece of it. And I think you're right. Like we do need to uh actually appreciate, like, one of the things that we talk about is valuing no, like appreciate and receive a no, like as a look at it as not like it's slapped into your face, but how can you receive it almost as a gift? And then, like any gift, think about, okay, where do I put it? What do I do with this? And how, if I unwrap it, where is the value in this? Will it lead me to another direction? Will it lead me to trying something else? There's been a lot of times, and I'm sure everybody listening to this can relate, where I've been rejected or got a no. My first story obviously was kind of a negative, although who knows, right? We don't know.
Well, is
And
it a negative? Because it probably led you to do the work that you do today, ultimately.
that's such a good point. And it certainly led me to a place like my husband and I always say we could have never written a book called Go for No and do the work that we do if we were fearless, if no didn't bother us, and the whole message was suck it up, Buttercup. Stop whining about hearing no. You can get rejected and go out there and sell something. There's a lot of value, I think, in no, and there's value in getting it faster instead of doing all of the things we do, to your point, to try to avoid that rejection.
Yes.
And I mean, from a sales standpoint, we talk about that. We talk about, disqualifying people. If there's you're looking for somebody to buy what you have, to resonate with your offer. Well, don't try to convince or persuade or do that aggressive salesy thing. It's presented, and then if it's a no, it's like, great, then it's not for you. Let me move on and find somebody it is for.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I was just about to say that same thing. I love like when clients tell me they said no, or I presented this option or what have you, and it was declined. I'm always like, great, that's awesome because they're not for you. Now we know that. Why waste another 6 months of playing games? And this work is really ultimately so aligned. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because it is so aligned with us connecting to our own sense of value and worth. And if we do not know that, then we will play this game of hunting and pecking and being the victim and feeling rejected and nobody wants me. No, we have to feel sure and secure in who we are and what we're doing and what our value is. And when we do that, it may reduce the amount of people that say yes to us, but who cares? You only need one, right? And pretty much any circumstance, we need one good friend, one job, one animal, one connection here, whatever. And to me, that is when you have the yes that is totally aligned with who you are, there's nothing else that we need. And it satisfies so much more than a lot of partial, well, this is sort of okay, so I'll just take that. All we're saying is, I don't value myself enough to actually wait for the thing that is truly aligned with me. And it's a real sad state, but it comes from that wounded place of us not feeling that we're good enough.
Right. Take whatever you can get, and don't take a chance of waiting. So I think part of it, you have to learn patience, but also going back to what you were saying about taking things personally. So the life transformational book that I read, I'm sure you are familiar with it. It's called The Four Agreements.
Yes.
And one of them is not to take things personally. And so that became something that, we don't talk about some of these things in our book. Like I said, it's a real small 80-page fable. Not taking no personally is a huge piece to the Go for No puzzle, because it's one thing for us to come out and say, hey, from a success standpoint, if you want to achieve success faster, you need to hear no more often. You need to be asking, right? That's the heart of Go for No. But what I recognized was people are like, yeah, that's what I need to do. And then I wouldn't do it because there's something holding them back. And that's when I realized, oh, it's these things. It's the taking it personally. I remember a time on Amazon where we had written a book. This wasn't Go for No, it happened to be another book. And this was back in the day where authors could comment on reviews on Amazon. So this goes back a ways. And just so people know, if you've written a book and you've put it on Amazon, authors love reviews. We're so
Yes, we
excited when
do.
we get a review. We're like, oh, we have to read it. So I go on Amazon, I read this 1 star. It's a 1 star review, and I'm like, oh, okay. And I feel the physical sensation in my body from the rejection, and that physical sensation, by the way, does not go away no matter how much work you do. And that's for me, at least, that's why I say it's hardwired into us. Literally, that physical sensation is still there. The mindset might change, but I feel the feeling and I just kind of let it pass. And then I kind of rely on what I read in the Four Agreements. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get in this person's head. And I went, okay, what things have I experienced in my life where I had that reaction? So I commented this person and I said, you know what? I get it. I went to I went to the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which was like this Oscar-winning movie, and I thought it was weird. And we walked out after about a half an hour. So anyway, in my review, I write to this person. I say, you know what? I get it. I went to this movie, and we left. We thought it was horrible. So I appreciate that you tried to read it, and I get that it didn't resonate for you, and it's cool, or whatever else I said. And it felt really good because it felt really good and empowering to acknowledge that that person has that right to reject the work and the right to give me a 1 star. And that person is no more right or wrong than the person to give the work a 5 star and say it was the greatest book they've ever read. Who's right? Who knows? It doesn't matter. It's
Right.
it's not personal.
Right.
And that was that has been a real epiphany. And I always think back to the times that I've been rejected and use that as kind of the way to free myself from taking it personally.
Yeah, it is such a huge, huge thing. I will slightly disagree with you about the sensation doesn't go away in the body, but
Okay.
I think
No,
it
well,
can.
you would know more than me on this, because I think you've studied it a lot more. So please, I
Well,
want to hear.
I think it can, but it's, this it's basically what you're saying is there's just old memory cell in your body that's getting activated from the trigger, and that's okay. There's no judgment about that. Maybe it'll go away, maybe it won't. It doesn't matter necessarily, but I'm glad that you recognize it. And it's part of the process of our healing work, I think. So, there's absolutely no judgment about it. But I think eventually it can go away. And I too, like you, I've, authored several books. And so I've had negative reviews. I've had negative reviews on other things. And the place I go with it now, there are two things. One, I take this mindset of, wow, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Now, there is a tendency in me to want to dive into the person's psychology and look at their profile and, do they write bad reviews all the time? Because we want to rationalize. And this is our ego coming up. We're trying to protect ourselves and rationalize, oh, something's wrong with that person or something's wrong with this interpretation or what have you. But if we just go to and go, that's interesting. And secondly, recognize, as they say in the movies, any attention or in the paparazzi or whatever, negative attention is still good attention. Your negative PR is still good PR.
All
And
PR is good PR, I think
yeah,
it
there you
is.
go.
Yeah,
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 I know. I shouldn't have said paparazzi. I don't know, but the same thing, whatever, in the news and all that.
yeah, yeah.
So when we've struck a chord, positive or negative, that's information. It's just information that our work is going out there. And if you're an artist, and I think all of us are artists, and I'm hoping to encourage people to embrace their artists in some way, in a bigger way. But as artists, we have to know that the interpretation and the personalization about it is in the work. And then we release that into the world, and we have nothing to do with how they receive it or their judgment of it or their feeling about it. Because you're right, it doesn't matter as long as our heart and our self is in the work itself. And that's probably one of the hardest pieces about being an artist. I remember, I used to do like acting and stuff. And when I first came to New York, I was in Los Angeles before, but I was in New York. I was working in a different way, in a different kind of sector of media and so forth. And I remember this coach, he said, if you have the stomach for it, you can stay. But if you don't, you'll be spit out in 5 seconds. And I was like, that's the only difference, to have a stomach for it or not. And it's essentially learning to do what you're teaching, which is go in, do your thing, whatever happens, don't take it personally. It's not a rejection of self. It's simply information to help us align towards a yes. And that's it. I love, there's so many cliches about this. I know, like, when one door closes, another one opens, or the window, whatever the
Right.
cliches are, right? So
Yeah.
we know all this, but I love the idea of really making this like a game, really getting action oriented and going for things in the sense of just seeing what's possible, because it is a numbers game ultimately. If we go no, 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 yes, yes, yes. Oh, interesting. Okay, more no's, more yeses. And until we just learn that about what we're going for, because the yeses will come. If we don't have the impetus and the action and the going for the things, how do we ever even know? That's what's so sad to me. People are leaving so much of their life on the table because they don't want to hear a two-letter word.
Yeah, and it's sad to me as well. That's why one of the fun things I did this year was something I called the 7-day Ask Your Ask Off Challenge.
Oh,
And every day I gave the people who signed up, I gave them an ask assignment. And so it was business and sales oriented, which is really the audience that I serve. So one day it was like, um, go prospect for a new customer. That was your ask, right? You're literally trying to, one day was trying to close the sale. One day was asking your current customers if they, for more, like would they like to try another offer, or what could you upsell them into something else. and and one of the days was just to do something crazy, to do like just a wild, weird, crazy ask. And there's a guy who wrote a book called Rejection Proof, and he did what he called, a guy in Canada actually started it, and it's called Rejection Therapy, and it's 100 days, and every day you do some kind of ask. You make some kind of ask, and this guy who wrote the book Rejection Proof, his name was Jia Zhang. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And the video that went viral was him going into a Krispy Kreme donut shop and asking them if they would make the Olympic, I don't know what made him come up with this idea, but the Olympic rings out of donuts. And the young girl behind the counter was like, I don't know really how to do that, but sure, we'll give it a shot. So they make the donuts into these Olympic rings, and it goes completely viral. One, just because he asked them to do it. Two, because she was willing to do it, kind of went above and beyond to say yes to this customer. And he did all kinds of funny things. He asked to, he was on a Southwest flight and asked if he could go onto the loudspeaker and say hi to the all the passengers. He asked a police officer if he could sit in the car. He went to a mattress store and asked if he could take a nap on a mattress, which they said yes to. He got lots and lots of yeses, which is kind of the funny realization, which is it's
yes.
crazy how when you do ask, you actually get more yeses than you think. The no's aren't out there as much as you think. But he also kind of numbed himself to no. He started to see that you don't die, you survive. It's not that big a deal. And so doing the exercise, doing it, it's almost like anything else. It's like yoga. It's a practice.
Yes.
You practice the skill of asking. And so in this challenge, and all the challenges I do, I always encourage people, create a no awareness. Like, be asking yourself, where in my business, where in my life am I failing to ask? Could I ask? Because I think, Leah, sometimes we shut ourselves down. We don't look for those opportunities, or they may come up quickly and we dismiss them out of hand. Like, well, no, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't do that. Kind of going back to my people pleasing, when we started our conversation, like, that's what I find so empowering about this is I have learned to love to ask. I love the challenge, but I was in a place when I was younger where I didn't want to ask. It was like, I had a belief that no, something, if you deserved something or something was for you, it would be given to you. You don't go
Mm-hmm.
around asking. That's like just rude.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I actually think the asking, I use that as a spiritual practice in my life. And I'm often encouraging that kind of in a different way, like asking for help. But even still, that's an ask, and someone can say yes or no. And I love asking for help as a spiritual practice for myself, but also I know that people love to help. Most people love to help, and it enriches their life and it gives them something. And then we create a connection and everyone feels good. So I love to use ask as a spiritual practice. I think that when I think of successful business people, and I would not put myself in this category because that's not my aim or goal in my life, but I admire people, those, well, I live near New York City, so I always think about like, the executives and like the high rises and stuff. Do you think those people are sitting around just going, "Oh, I don't know, maybe, I don't think so." No, they are asking and going for and suggesting and putting things on the table almost every minute of every day because they've learned this principle. And when you get to that level of success, you have to be comfortable with, I don't even want to say rejection. Like I know there's that other cliche. It's not rejection, it's redirection or whatever, but just someone saying no, you have to get comfortable with it at a certain level. And those people inspire me because it's like, well, why not? Why not? If I feel, and again, going back to kind of my tenets of the healing work and the spiritual work, we don't take it personally. And if I trust myself and if I'm aligned with my truth, there's nothing to lose here. There's absolutely nothing to lose. In fact, a lot of times now when people tell me no, I look at them with a new kind of respect. I go, oh, okay. I see a person who knows what they want. They know that this isn't aligned for whatever reason on their side. I don't take it personally, but it's just a no. And it actually helps me. It helps me to know, okay, for some reason right now, that isn't the right direction and it's not the right thing for me. So I love this so much. I think it's applicable to every single thing that we do, especially like, what about the people at restaurants and their food absolutely sucks and they've spent $25? Now, I'm a person, I'm going to raise my hand and go, hi, sorry, this isn't okay, but I know many people, they don't want to cause a scene. They don't want to insult the chef. They don't want to waste the time. They may not feel worthy to get what they're paying for. And in that case, I have to be the one to say, no, thank you to this, but either give me my money back or please give me an edible meal, right? It shows up everywhere.
Shows up everywhere. Could you imagine what the world would be like? And this is why a big piece of Go for No at its absolute core is really just about communication. Could you imagine what the world would be like if everybody asked for what they wanted and everybody else felt comfortable enough to just say no?
Yes.
We would have incredible communication, and there definitely is, and I appreciated that at the beginning you called out that this is not about saying no. Some people think Go for No is about saying no because that's such a huge theme, and just in general everything's like, say no and have boundaries, and I
Right.
believe me, I'm all for that. But they're two different things, and yet they're kind of connected. I find that people who aren't good at saying no are also not good at going for no, because it's just this communication skill, and it is a vulnerability. You
Yes.
do have to have the courage to say, just because you say no to someone doesn't mean that the your relationship is over, or that either party should be, this is, it just is what it is. And same thing with going for no and asking somebody for something. When we communicate, that's when all of the miscommunication breaks down, because that's what so many relationships have problems only due to lack of communication and nothing else.
Yes, I know. And I've been in those relationships. I am, yes, and I have been one of those. I've been in codependent relationships. I've acted very codependently, not wanting to upset someone, make sure everybody's okay, not voicing exactly what I want. Again, one of the tenets of our spirituality and our growth work is learning to speak our truth and be authentic. Who are we? What do we want? What do we need? As you said before, and not shying away from that for the sake of someone else. Now, we don't need to be rude. We don't need to be condescending. We don't need to be aggressive, but just pure, true, honest, pure. This is right. And when we're actually in the position to have to give the no that we were talking about, because we'll be in that position many times when we are practicing authentic communication and expression. There's a lot of ways to say that are actually quite lovely, just like, thank you, but I'm going to pass, or appreciate that you're thinking about me, but this isn't a right fit for me right now, or no, thank you. There's so many ways to to deliver that. And we may not always be in receipt of that same kind of no. Sometimes maybe we're ghosted, in a business way, in a relationship way. That's still a no, but that's still great. And always bringing it back to self, I believe, like bringing it back to self instead of looking out there of what other people may want and let me try to fit the mold so that they'll say yes to me. Looking in here and going, who am I? What do I have to offer? And if we're coming from a heart place and connected to that, then we will definitely find our fit. We don't have to change that much. We have to just be available.
Yeah, you reminded me of a saying, a good no is better than a bad yes.
Mm,
And we've all gotten a bad yes or been willing to accept something or whatever, like we were talking about earlier, of just kind of getting that low hanging fruit and going, okay, well, I got my yes, instead of qualifying and looking for the best possible yes. And oftentimes those bad yeses come back to haunt us, and it would have been fantastic had it been a no. That
yeah.
would have been better.
Right. Oh my gosh. There's so many times in my life that, I was pushing or I was morphing myself into whatever it needed to be so that I could get the job or win the thing or whatever. Oh, I wish I had that energy and time back. I don't regret it because I try not to live like that. But, we can all look back and go, okay, that was a real interesting use of my time that I wish I had done differently.
Hard fought lessons, Leah. And so for me, I get to monetize those lessons.
Yeah.
I get to take all my failures and all of my bad yeses, and now I get to share them with people, and yeah,
Yeah,
it works.
that's great. Well, listener, I hope that we've inspired you up to this point to be more willing and brave and clear, conscious, connected to your being, to not take no so personally, to not live your life trying to avoid rejection, but instead stepping into it. But Andrea, before we go, how can we give some tips or just a little bit more push in this direction for people?
Yeah. So, well, the one thing I did want to invite people to do is we've created a assessment on our website at goforno.com. People should come. They can take the assessment. It ranks, we've heard, you hear about emotional intelligence, which I'm a big fan of, EQ, right? And then there's IQ, intelligence quotient. So we test for no quotient, your no quotient, in your thoughts and feelings around failure and rejection. So we have a fun quiz on our website, and I think just making it a daily practice, like you do all of your practices, to think about what you have in your life that's a goal or a dream or something that you're working towards, and where does no fit into that, and how many no's are you willing to accept. And I love also too, Leah, that you were talking about making it a game. Yeah, make it fun. Set a no goal and see if you can achieve a certain number of no's.
Yeah. I mean, literally, you could walk up to a stranger and ask, would you buy me a bouquet of flowers today? Why not?
Yeah.
You might get a bouquet of flowers. You don't know until you ask. Or right,
And if you don't, you just practiced you just built a little courage muscle.
right, exactly. Or send the email and ask. I love this so much, and it's a perfect setup for the beginning of the year. I love personal challenges. I'm not like, I don't have a lot of personal challenges that I really instill every day, but I put these things in my mind, which then go into my subconscious. And just as you're walking around the day, think about, oh, here's an opportunity where I could actually ask or say what I want and see how it feels. Be inquisitive, be exploratory, let yourself be in that mindset of just discovering what's possible and different people's thoughts and feelings and behaviors and so forth. It can be really, really eye opening. And I just want to encourage everyone to do that. So thank you so much for being on the show, Andrea. I wish you nothing but continued failures and rejection and to keep strengthening your muscle. And I know that there's plenty of success for you as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And listener, thank you for being here with us today. And don't forget to follow us on social media. If you're watching this on YouTube, which you're always welcome to do, Andrea's socials will be there and also in our show notes as well. We will see you real soon on the Modern Sage podcast.